All right, so thank you again, everyone, for joining us on our special webinar today. As we have decided not to record our presenter and go for a live concert from 3 different locations, I hope that everything is going to work according to plan. So my name is Yiftach Nativ. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Contguard. In the last 25 years, I manage technology companies focused on entrepreneur and innovation activities, trying to make our world better, safer, and cleaner. I would like to take this opportunity and to thank Thorsten from TAPA and Piotr from Allianz, that when I connected them about a month ago and asked their help, they straight away agreed to be with us today. As we all want to spread the message that the new normal in cargo crime probably going to stay with us at least a year ahead, and make sure that companies and organizations that couldn't predict and couldn't prepare themselves for this situation at least should be aware that COVID-19 is not like any other threat we all seen in the last decades. This invisible enemy has changed our life completely. And we all know that eventually we'll get through this, but the upcoming waves are waiting for us behind the corner, and we all should be aware of them and prepare ourselves. So thank you for sharing the questions with us. We'll try to answer most of them during the presentation. So the agenda for today, I'm going to start with a short overview about current situation. Thorsten prepared an amazing presentation, risk takers versus resilience makers. And I think the bottom line is that we do have a choice. And the most important rule, and the important rule of TAPA, especially during these days, is significant for all of us. And I think we all should hear what Thorsten has to say. Later on, Piotr is going to take stick and going to give us an overview about how insurance companies, what's the role of the insurance companies during this pandemic, and a few recommendations maybe coming from this industry. The last part is going to be presented by our VP Product, Ran. He will show you, present a few real case studies related to current situation. Most of them we took from our current analytic platform, and that's going to be very, very interesting. A few weeks ago, I published 2 posts predicting that layoffs could lead to increase in cargo crime, as we believe that people will commit property crime mainly during mass layoff. In addition, the economic pressure and lack of weekday routine are the key driver for what we are calling a crime for profit. And it doesn't happen only in the United States as we see it right now. We see an increase in cargo looted all over the world. It happened in South Africa, it's happened in Italy, it happened in Mexico, and in many other countries. And in addition, there is another threat to cargo crime, and we are all wearing it. And the mask that we all put on our face can actually prevent to identify. We cannot identify anyone anymore. Just put a mask, put any glasses, any hat, and do whatever you want. When shipping goods from A to B, things don't always go as planned. During the last 20 years, companies invested millions of dollars to better manage their facilities with the most advanced technologies, but nothing really happened to managing goods in transit. 70% of the world goods are in transit in every given moment with almost no visibility and no control. And the impact for this activity is that we see a lot of direct losses during those transit routes. And those numbers we took from the last report published by the FBI in 2016, based on voluntary data, estimating that direct losses are more than $55 billion, we believe that those numbers are much higher, and the indirect losses, which I think most of the companies prefer not to put them in the financial reports, are about 4 times higher. So for every $1 for direct losses, we assume that there is additional 4 losses of $4. According to the last report from TAPA, in 2019, we see an increase of more than 114% compared to previous year. And I think this uncertainty is a situation that's going to increase in the coming months, maybe in the coming years. It's happening right now. We see that in current situation where we don't have enough visibility lead to abnormal supply chain events, more and more cargo quality issues, risk issues. It can be related to theft, it can be related to other issues. Most of our clients, and I believe you all know and you're all aware of it, because of the situation, has some unreliable ETAs, meaning delays in sending goods from point A to point B. And although we prepared ourselves for contingency planning, I don't think that no one was prepared for this situation. So our first presenter, Thorsten, will give us an overview about the TAPA activity, and I'm very honored and again, Thorsten, for joining us today. So Thorsten will take and present his presentation in a minute.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Yiftach. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you quite good.
Excellent. I hope you can hear me and you can see my slide here. So first of all, thanks for the amazing opportunity that we will be part of this very important webinar. And as you already said, one of the things what we all ask ourselves is really, what is the new normal? And it was quite interesting because right now today, Lufthansa announced that they strongly believe that their business will not go into a kind of a normal situation until 2023. So we are not only talking about really now a kind of are we back into a kind of a new normal in 2021? Some industries are already really saying that they will not go into a normal situation at least for the next 3 to 5, when not even longer years. So which is really, really quite interesting to listen and to understand this kind of threat right now. I will run through some of the slides very quick, and I hope that really Contguard will provide all slides after this webinar. If you have any further questions, also please always feel free to contact me. I hope you all know TAPA. If you don't know TAPA, please let me know. We are really the biggest supply chain security or resilience association in the world. In Europe, Middle East, and Africa alone, we are reaching nearly 600 member companies with all the big players in the brand. And here you can see some of our member companies, as you can all imagine, with this kind of expertise, with this kind of network and intelligence, I can assure you that we receive a lot of updates from all our members, what kind of challenges they do face on a day-by-day perspective due to the Corona crisis. It's also quite interesting how criminals are reacting, because right now cargo thieves see the current disruptions to global supply chains really as a window of opportunity to recover the losses during the COVID-19 lockdown. So what we see, especially in the supply chain, is that we see borders where we've never seen borders before. So border controls again. We do see massive interruptions in harbors and airports, in warehouses and handling areas and this kind of stuff. And it's also quite important, that a lot of attacks nowadays, because as you already mentioned, because people are becoming unemployed, are really involving violence or the threat of violence. And especially right now, if you take a look at Europe, Middle East, and Africa, there's a significant increase related to violence attack in South Africa, for example. You mentioned this one already, and I think that's really quite important. Everybody's always talking about, the direct impact of cargo crime. Be aware of the indirect impact. You said it's 4 times higher. There are a lot of studies on the market. Some studies are even saying it's 5 to 7 times higher. We can strongly advise you take a look also at your damaged reputation and brand. That's really quite important. It's really the worst situation when you as a company and your brand is not in a position to deliver the products on time, or for example, that you've been mentioned in the media, on the press, because your product being engaged in criminal activities or impacted by something like what's going on right now in the US or whatever. So that's really quite important to understand that. If we take about the risk, if we talk about really what's going on, I think it's also quite important that the situation also due to the Corona crisis changed significantly. Nowadays, every product is under risk, every product. Whatever you carry, thieves will steal everything because they can turn around everything. There's no black market nowadays anymore. So they steal it on Monday and they sell it on the same day on online platforms, like eBay, Alibaba, Rakuten, Flipkart, Amazon, and so on and so on. And again, there's no black market anymore. So which means that they can sell the product nearly to the price as a genuine product and not as a stolen product. So that's also quite important. And it's also important really to take a look at from expectations on a logistics service provider. So I don't want to say know the unknowns, and I'm not the person who can have the crystal ball, but I think it's quite important that we are facing situations right now due to the pandemic we never thought about. We never really thought about that, honestly speaking, that I will see in my life again a border control when I'm going from my former hometown to Denmark. But now we do see border controls for the last couple of months. We see the same situation even sometimes within Germany. It sounds crazy, but we had controls, when you went from one state to the other state, and which is a quite interesting situation. But also be aware of the risk carrying this kind of situation, because as a logistics service provider, you're not prepared for that. You're driving the same route for the last couple of years. You're using the same truck stops and this kind of stuff. And if you take a look, just to give you another number, in Germany, one of the biggest service providers for the truck stops nearby or at the highways has been impacted by the Corona crisis with more than 80% of their revenue is really impacted by the Corona crisis, because people are not stopping anymore where they stopped before. People are looking for alternatives. And this is exactly where the weakest link is coming into the game, and where we do see, like using intelligence. And that's one of the things where you need to identify, theft hotspots, or where's the risk going to right now, and we can see that in some areas, the risk went from a completely known area to a completely unknown area. So if you take a look at the TAPA statistics, for example, it's quite interesting that over the last couple of weeks, we recorded more crime than ever before. And we recorded crimes with the value, and again, it's a recorded crime. It's a tip of the iceberg. It's not the reality. It's not really, it's not really the entire number. It's a number we know, we are aware of, and it's already a significant number. So that's the reason why we are heavily focused really on crime intelligence. Crime intelligence is really something where you need to increase transparency and also ensure that you really connect the dots to mitigate the risk for your products. I think it's also quite important, if you take a look at the entire situation, of course, theft from vehicle, which is really 57.5% of all cases, or unclassified parking places. As we all know, TAPA is driving for secured parking places, all over the world, and of course there are other, initiatives also ongoing, but we strongly believe that this initiative must come from the industry for the industry. And what I already mentioned, the closure of borders, the port delays, and other supply chain disruptions make it harder and harder, especially for your guys, to really plan safe routes and prevent cargo crime. You have products on the road, where you always knew where they are. Now you have the situation where sometimes you have no clue where the products are when you do not have the right countermeasures in place. Whilst some of the airline companies use routes, now they're using routes you even don't know. It's really interesting to take a look at some of the news, some of the real situations. What you take a look right now, as already mentioned by Yiftach, if you take a look, for example, at South Africa and the situation, what's going on there, it's also interesting to see that in some cases, some of the containers, even the shipping company don't know right now where the container is, because it's a completely rerouted situation as it was before. So it's really interesting to take a look at your transparency, and if you're really interested, to take a look where is really right now your weakest link within your supply chain. So this little Corona crisis right now here, not the little, I'm sorry for that, it's really, it's an unbelievable situation we are all in, and we fight this kind of situation every freaking day. I can sing a song on that. Trust me, I'm in a lockdown situation for the last couple of weeks. With 3 kids and a wife at home. And working from home, no conferences. It's really a situation I've never dealt with before. I traveled to 81 countries in my professional career. For the last 3 months, I was even not sitting in an aircraft or in a conference or whatever. So it's a really, really interesting and completely uncomfortable situation in some cases. But the criminals are exactly using this kind of opportunity to really go into our direction and fight and really attack us on a way we've never seen before. I do not want to spend too much time on our standards, but I think it's quite important. We are adjusting our standards right now, right here, and we also train people, and we also adjust some of our standards already according to the findings because of the lockdown situation within the Corona crisis. That's really quite important. So we have more than 100 security experts from all these companies you have seen, feeding us with information, and this information is going straight and immediately into our standards. So we adjusted some standards in our facility security requirements. We adjusted standards and some requirements within our trucking security requirements. We listen to the market. We look at the entire situation. We try to go to a situation where we can say, this is right now the best possible solution to mitigate your risk to the lowest level you can achieve within your industry. Let's be very open and honest. If you knock on my door and you say to me, I have a 100% security solution, I can close the door immediately, because there's one point which is quite important. We wish that the entire world is really driven by Luke Skywalkers, but unfortunately, a lot of people are already in a Anakin Skywalker situation and going into a Darth Vader solution. So that's really quite important to understand that. It's really important to understand the risk we do see, but it's also important to understand the opportunity you can create really with an industry accepted standard. I think it's also quite important, as already mentioned, that you take a look at your weakest link. And over the last couple of years, of course, as soon as goods are coming to a rest, goods are at risk. So which means a parking security requirement is the key to your end-to-end supply chain risk solution. So if you would like to mitigate your risk to the lowest level, take a look when your goods are coming to a rest, because then the goods are significantly at risk. And I think that's really something which is really super important. But it's also important that we do see stuff we've never seen before. If you take a look, for example, like rail from China to Europe is significantly increasing their volume, which means that criminals will target this in the near future or already looking at it. We have seen that one lead logistics service provider announced that they will start daily trucking operations, trucking straight from China into Germany, which is really interesting. So what does it mean for us from a risk point of view? When a truck with your products is really driving not hundreds of miles anymore or hundreds of kilometers, it's now driving thousands of kilometers, to really come to your end consumer. And I think that's really super important to understand that. But it's also important that, that we are not growing only in membership. We are growing on certifications everywhere. We are growing on intelligence. We are growing on really your expertise and your network. And I think that's really super important to focus on that also in the future, because this is not a fight you fight on your own. This is a fight the entire industry is fighting. So let's be as strong, as we can, and let's work together, related to this one. And of course, this kind of webinar, where you say, and Yiftach mentioned it, and he hit the nail on the head. When he contacted me, of course, I said immediately yes on behalf of the TAPA Association, because it's quite important that, again, this is not a specific company problem. This is an industry challenge right now. So, oh, I'm sorry, this was a little bit too fast, So what are we doing? So what do we do, from a TAPA point of view? We are heavily engaged in a lot of activities right now. We are looking at other industries. We are looking at other, companies, associations. We are looking at, for example, also regulations. We are in constant contact with, also government authorities and government contacts. We, including the European Commission, Interpol, Europol, the NATO, UNECE, and so on. So our engagement with partners is something which we strongly believe is really the foundation beside our standards and our intelligence service. It's really something where we build our entire building or our entire house or our entire strategy on. That's really quite important to understand that. I think it's also quite important, that a lot of EU regulations are impacting our supply chain, and they will impact our supply chain even more in the near future. If you take a look right now, what the politicians do discuss in Brussels, it's amazing to see that, and it's amazing to see, that they have no clue what impact will this really wake or what really will happen, because they do not connect the dots here. They do not really take a look at the wider picture. They really do not understand, that sometimes a small change, within a minor regulation can have a significant impact on the other side of the supply chain. And a good example is really that they were not thinking it to an end, when they started to discuss the EU Safe and Secured Parking Place initiative. And right now they receive a lot of pushback related to this one. Let me also share with you some stuff, related to TAPA. I think it's quite important before the COVID crisis, because this is a significant impact for us. We all love TAPA conferences. We all look forward to come to the TAPA conference again. But as you can all imagine, unfortunately, we came also to a standstill because of the COVID crisis. We had no chance to look at our conference or, really run our conference, which has been planned earlier this year in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. We hope that we will see our next conference either in late 2020 or in 2021. As already mentioned, you can see that some companies announced that they will not go back to normal in the next 3 to 5 years, but we are still active. You will see a lot of online publications. You will see our e-magazine. We also prepare webinars right now to really share with you what we do, to really share with you our ideas, to share with you the latest trends, the latest hotspots and everything. And I think that's really quite important to understand that. But I think it's also quite important, as I mentioned already, that we already look at the new threats. What does it really mean? What is the impact on the COVID situation all over the world? What is really the new normal? And as already said, we are right now working on the final preparations for the modular approach. And one of the reasons is really the increase on rail services, or, for example, trucking directly from China to Germany or to Europe. We are looking for multi-site certification. But last but not least, which is also super important, the Corona crisis it's a massive crisis, and of course criminals will also use now modern technology to even attack us on a harder front than they ever did before, and we are really in the final phase to roll out also the first supply chain cybersecurity standards globally later this year. So that's really quite important. I can talk to you for the next hours, but it's a webinar, so we must be straight to the point and we need to keep it simple. So it's very important to do it. So let's get going. Let's do it. Let's do it together. Let's win. And if you're not a member of the TAPA family, I can only say contact me, contact Contguard. I hope that we can win you to join a family with more than 500 companies already, all over the world, and 500 only in Europe. And as you have seen, the strongest and biggest brands are part of TAPA for really a very small membership fee and a tremendous benefit. And that's really it. Thank you, Yiftach. Thanks for the opportunity. And if there are any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Thorsten. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're going to leave maybe a few more minutes later on for questions. So next presenter, Piotr from Allianz. Piotr,
hello?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, we can hear you.
Fine.
So Piotr is a good friend and one of the most professional people I met. He knows everything about risk, and I think working together with him taught me a lot about how insurance companies are looking on cargo risk and what measurements need to be taken in order to prevent those losses, and how it's all connected to technology offers. So thank you, Piotr, for being with us today. Yeah, if you can share your presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today. And of course, I would like to welcome you to this presentation. My name is Piotr Szymczak. I am with Allianz, and precisely Allianz Global Corporate and Specialty, and since years with the risk consulting marine department at our company. And the presentation will be about loss control, cargo tracking, and of course in connection with COVID-19. The topics of my presentation will be as this: current situation in the market regarding cargo crime, then common professional loss control procedures. The third point would be exposures where improved monitoring may be of interest. And fourth, COVID-19, loss control and independent cargo monitoring. And at the end, if there are special questions, you can raise them, or even after the presentation, after our session. Yeah. Risk Consulting Marine, who we are? We are master mariners, marine engineers, engineers in the area of logistics, supply chain, and so on. We provide technical expertise and proactive risk management to our clients, of course also to our internal clients, and always in partnership with brokers and our clients. We are based worldwide. The majority of us is based in the US and Europe, but we have also some experts in Brazil, India, and Singapore. And we are coming now to the first topic of our agenda: current situation in the market regarding cargo crime. I chose a picture which shows the threat of theft from Szymczak, and I would like you to focus on the black color on this map. And from my experiences, I can at least say that this very severe danger is being in Mexico, Brazil, and South Africa. At least we have in our business the most majority of issues there. The next page, I will speak about some figures which I collected from EMEA. These figures are from 2019. That means quite new. And EMEA, it is stays for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. According to the TAPA information, we had last year to do with around about 8,500 recorded incidents, and all these recorded incidents made together around about 140 million of euros. But be aware that only 40% of cases the amount was provided to TAPA. That means this amount might be a lot of higher than 140 million. Among our issues, we had to do with 180 major freight theft of more than 100,000 euros, and the average of these 180 incidents was more than 1.5 million. That means we have to do with a lot of money which is stolen during shipments. Interesting is also that the largest incident we had, or let's say TAPA simply collected, is a theft of jewelry from a storage building in South Africa. The theft was of about 17.5 million euros. To the right, you can see a picture in original presentation there was a movie, but it wouldn't work today, so I say only a few words about this picture. It shows the common modus of operandi. That means a replacement of cargo during shipment. Our client got to know that something might be wrong with several containers of him, of course, and we have appointed a surveyor. He did the survey in the harbor, I think in Amsterdam, and the seals were without any damages, without any signs of tamper. But as he opened the container, and this is here the example, one example, he simply could recognize stones inside the container. And the weight of these stones weighed precisely the same as of the original cargo, and original cargo was, I haven't mentioned it, it was a precious metal. Not of that value, but let's say of some hundreds of euros each container. And we observed that the crime is rising or rises these days, not only in EMEA region. Yeah. Common professional loss control procedures. This is the next topic we have. I mean, this is quite common to you as participants, but I would like only to focus on the most important points, maybe also these days. I think the most important points of loss control against crime are especially living general safety culture at all parties involved. That means to make risk analysis, to choose secure routes, to use secure parking. As Thorsten said before, this is the most important, maybe the most important point of the journey of the security during shipments. Monitoring performed by the logistics provider. I mean, monitoring is quite often done during shipments, but the responsible party for it is maybe always a logistic provider and no independent party. And of course, contingency plans are really very, very important if you would like to avoid problems or issues during shipments. If you would like to do it more professional way, I would say with more comprehensive approach, you could also, or it is recommended maybe, to use TAPA TSR security levels, because you can choose between the lowest, the middle, the highest level, and the companies are checked, approved, and so on. It is at least a very good point to avoid losses. The question is if there are any further possibilities for improvement. And we believe yes. And we think especially about cargo monitoring and of course independent cargo monitoring, because it has some advantages. You can see the exposures on this page, the exposures which could be monitored by independent cargo monitoring. But if we speak about theft risk, then of course location and breakage and light are most important. The first one, location, because you would like to know what is going on, and of course where. And this information you will be provided by GPS sensors or whatever. Then lights, if we speak about cargo compartments, then if the sensor can recognize light inside the cargo compartment, then you will say something might be wrong during the journey. And of course, sensors can be also mounted or applied to the doors and to the openings of the cargo compartment, so you will be informed about any entries of the cargo compartment. Then this is maybe a little bit special page, because I had one time, maybe not only one time, several times to think about geofencing. Should we require geofencing or not? And to be honest, I haven't that good idea what to think about it, because geofencing is a little bit connected to let's say to more effort and complexity and so on. And a few days ago, I found a table with figures of TAPA from their risk assessment from 2019, in this case for Germany, and they presented their incidents or categories of incidents. And if you have a look on the first row of this table, theft from vehicle, we have to do with theft in 66% of theft cases with theft from vehicle. The third line speaks again about theft from trailer. And there's additional lines not mentioned here, not showed here, but theft from container. It is round about 1% and well, let's say 5. If you calculate these three numbers alone together, then you will reach 70% is stolen from the cargo space itself. And if you think that the second line, theft, is a very general expression about the theft, then you may think that some of these of the cases which belong to theft might be theft from the cargo space also. That means we have at least to do, we have the effectivity of recognizing theft by monitoring the cargo space itself at least by 70%, by, I would assess, by more than 90%. This is of course an idea and a try to understand this problem, let's say. And of course, if you have to do with more expensive cargo, with areas where your shipment will be going through of high theft threats or similar, then geofencing is still very, very recommended, because it is an additional security and it makes sense. It makes always sense, but it is connected to some additional efforts, of course. And next page. After the coronavirus 19 started, we risk consultants of Allianz has prepared some brochures about the risk, how to deal with loss prevention measures. And if you would like to have a look on such presentation, but especially on this presentation, which is about cargo storage and transportation, of course, loss prevention measures at these areas, then I can provide it to you later time. I took some of the recommendations of this brochure, but I also added additional ones, and just presenting this recommendation on this page. It is, of course, in connection with COVID-19 situation, this special situation. And in my opinion, the most important point these days is to take the current pandemic realities into account. That means to be informed about new developments, to closures of borders, of seaports, about closures of the storage places of the consignees, and so on. And of course, your information will help only then if you have prepared contingency plans and gave clear instructions to the carriers. And last but not least, it is the most quite important, maybe really important, to obtain form and deliver a confirmation and acknowledgement from the recipient of your cargo. You know, these days, simply because the people are very afraid about the infection, sometimes it is not done. But there are some procedures in the market which are very, very safe for the drivers and for the parties involved, and you can still obtain this such confirmation, and I believe that it could solve your problems later time. And be aware that TEFCA, then that cargo risk, theft risk seems to rise even more since the pandemic. I mean, Thorsten spoke about it, Yiftach spoke about it. You can find a lot of articles in the papers about this development, but also our engineers, especially from America and Brazil, North America and Brazil, confirmed that the situation is really getting worse. And again, we believe that independent cargo monitoring could be the answer or the reply for this development. We did with Contguard some trials and also lived in practical business cargo tracking with Contguard. So we were able to collect some experiences with cargo tracking, and I would like to speak about 3 examples I prepared for this topic. And one of the first example is about shipments of precious metals in containers from Southeast Europe. The containers were previously opened by the thieves and cargo was removed. As simple as that. It means we had, let's say, valuable cargo at the beginning of the journey, but later on the containers were simply empty, and the company hasn't got any cargo anymore. Since cargo monitoring had been implemented, theft stopped completely, and we believe the reason was that the guys got to know that loss control has improved that much, I would say. So they got afraid or frightened by this loss control measures, and simply said we can get different jobs to make our money, but not with this cargo. Then example second, valuable pharma shipments of in trucks from Italy. Our insured could recognize that the carrier had roughly disregarded his security instructions, e.g. instead of direct passage, he drove in opposite direction during weekend, several times parked at unauthorized places, at shopping centers, because you could recognize it from the pictures. We were provided by Contguard and experienced unauthorized opening of truck cargo space. We believe that the driver itself opens this cargo space. The question is for what purpose? Maybe he used this cargo space as a fridge for his purchases by mentioned shopping centers. But anyway, we speak here about, let's say, some kind of TAPA security, and so I think TAPA security is a very good point, and we promote it in all cases, no doubt, but sometimes it is very good to monitor the logistics provider himself, I mean independently. The example 3, shipments of valuable precious metal residue to South Africa. Deviation of the pre-planned route could be identified and clarified without delay. You can recognize also from the sentence that we have also the route programmed into the system, I mean geofencing, and so we were able to follow the shipments online. It's all from my side, I think. Yes? This is the last page, I would say, and I will give my voice or the voice to Israel, to Yiftach.
Thank you,
Thank
Piotr,
you
so much for the great presentation. So next presenter going to be Ran. Ran is our VP product. He's going to show us a little bit some examples we took recently from anonymized data, just to give you some understanding what, how it looks in reality. And yeah, so Ran, thank you.
Okay. So let me tell you a bit about Contguard. So Contguard is a data analytics company for goods in transit. We deliver supply chain, security, and quality related insights for manufacturers about their goods in transit. We use IoT devices mostly to obtain the data. This is the main source of information. We have been in market for 5 years, more or less, and we're currently track and analyze billions of dollars worth of goods using this technology. We also maintain a very strong ecosystem partnership. We are TAPA members, and our investors include AXA Ventures, Citibank, and Canon Partners. We're also working closely with Allianz and with AXA Insurance to bring value to our joint customers. Contguard offers a unique solution in our domain. We basically offer the entire value chain for tracking and analyzing goods in transit. We operate fit-for-purpose IoT devices for tracking the goods. These devices are basically attached to the goods in the beginning of the shipment and removed once it arrives at the destination. This whole journey is covered from warehouse to warehouse, including all modes of transportation in between. It could be trucks, rail, barge, ship, anything that comes to mind. And we are tracking maritime containers, boxes, pallets, and all sorts of cargo. We take ownership of the device logistics end to end, and also the reverse logistics. So the customers don't need to worry about getting the data. We make sure that the data flows. Our customers have access to 2 SaaS models. One tracks live shipments and provides real-time data such as location, condition, and the ETA for the goods. And the other model analyzes completed shipments and identifies trends, anomalies, patterns that supports planning and longer-term improvements. In addition, we also operate a 24/7 escalation center that supports our customers in generating quick corrective actions if things are not progressing as planned with their cargo, which is almost always the case in some routes. We primarily use first-hand data, meaning we use IoT devices that are attached to the goods. This is how we turn any cargo into connected cargo. The data coming out of the connected cargo includes, firstly, the location, which is based on GPS or on cellular location, goods quality condition, which can be related to the temperature, to the humidity conditions, or to physical impact that they might experience along the way. The good security condition, which can be opening the door of a container or light within the container or within the box, which implies that there was a security breach, a potential security breach. Our platform analyzes the data coming from these sensors, calculates the ETA, and then generates alert in case the required conditions are not met. And all that brings a lot of value to our customers. There's a wide range of benefits that result from having a connected cargo solution in place. Customers typically come to Contguard with 1 or more or 3 needs, which are relatively obvious, shown here above water, if you look at this iceberg example. So they want supply chain visibility, they want reliable ETAs, they suffer from theft, or they have quality problems and damages to their goods. We can help in all these issues, basically help them to proactively manage their goods in transit. But there's more to it. As shown, it's only the tip of the iceberg. Customer service could be improved with reliable ETA, so planning downstream is better. Aggregated data allows our customers to reduce lead times and choose the best logistics solution for their needs. Risk can be managed and losses can be mitigated by taking a data-driven approach. This leads to cost savings and brand protection because brands are exposed to any damages that reach the market, any losses, goods not arriving to the shelves. Everything impacts brand image. Overall growth is also unlocked by lowering inventory levels due to leaner supply chain. I'll now show a few examples, as time allows, of how this is done using the Contguard Insights platform. So when companies start working with connected cargo, they shift from no data at all to too much data. That's why the live shipments model helps our customers to manage their shipments by exception. It shows the current location and condition of all the active shipments and highlight the ones that experience exceptions and may require specific handling. Exceptions can be delays, extreme temperature, humidity, strong physical impact, or suspected security breaches. Here we can see a shipment that is running late compared to the plan provided by the customer. Our platform is connected to all the service providers and obtains the latest shipping plan. The actual progress is measured against the plan, and ETA is calculated to each waypoint along the way. It also considers vessel information in order to come up with the shipment progress and location. This is a recent example of an abnormal behavior of a shipment. It may be related to the COVID-19 situation, we're not sure, but it really happened now. And what we see here is a shipment that for 3 months kept going back and forth to this specific port in Mexico, thus creating a massive delay versus its plan. So you can see here that this shipment was supposed to arrive in April, expected time of arrival now July. In addition, if our system identifies that the cargo was opened outside the origin or destination warehouses, it is flagged as a suspected security event. In this example, we can see both door open and light on at the port. This was flagged as a suspected security event. You can see it here. In such cases, the customer or Contguard Security Operations Center checks and, if needed, escalates the situation to the relevant party that's responsible for the cargo at that point in time. Sometimes the goods arrive damaged. In such cases, it is important to understand the reason and the responsible party so that the damage could be claimed. In this example, we identified strong physical impact at the port, which could be the reason for such damage. In addition, by identifying these impact events in real time, customers can proactively manage the situation, flag this container for check before delivering to the end customer, and in some cases, they can prepare replacement in advance so that the goods are not lost in the market. Theft events reported by our customers can also be traced back to the responsible party. In this example, we identified that the security violation was during an unauthorized stop in this specific gas station, and this was reported back to our customer, which handled the situation. Post-shipment security review also enables risk reduction. Looking at similar data over time helps our customers to review their policies. In this example, we have seen repeated security violations at the same gas station in Poland. Our customer changed their security policies with their logistic provider, and then this theft has stopped. Last example. Analyzing shipments going from the same origin to the same destination over time highlights anomalies, patterns, and trends. In this case, for example, we can see that the routes taken were different than the ones planned. You can see here on the map the few shipments overlaid one on top of the other, and the routes are dramatically different, and there are few alternatives. Not all of them were planned by our customer. In addition, in this view, you can see that the lead time changes dramatically between the different shipments. There's a lead time trend going up, going down. We can see the different durations that took the shipment in each route segment. Like it took almost 5 days at the loading warehouse, and then it took some time to get from place A to place B. This is also part of the analysis. In addition, we analyze idle time versus movement time, and this gives us a hint of the improvement potential for lead time reduction. In this case, after 13 days, this shipment was 10 days idle, meaning waiting at location this or that location to be picked up by the next party in the supply chain. It means that the next time that it takes to get from point A to point B is only 2 days. The rest of the time is about synchronization between the different suppliers. This concludes the presentation. I think we're out of time. Are there any questions that were raised, Yiftach, on the chat that we may want to address now?
No, unfortunately, we are running out of time, but we collected all the questions and we'll come back to you in a private message. By the way, we can also going to share this presentation, so all of you are going to get the slides. And thank you all for joining us. So it looks like it worked quite good, although the technical issues. And I hope we're all going to wake up in a few months and forget that this pandemic really happened. But during this coming month, we should all be aware that risk is just there. So again, thank you, Thorsten. Thank you, Piotr, and see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Don't mention it. Bye.